If you eat chicken, you eat chicken.
Right, when ChatGPT takes your job, you are going to be forced to eat potato. Okay.
So ChatGPT is going to take my job, it looks like. So we've already spoken about supply and demand in a previous episode, but today we are going to talk about a related concept that will help us, basically me, determine whether or not ChatGPT is going to take my job, and if so, then how. Navin is going to do most of the talking.
So, the concept we are trying to understand today is substitutes and complements. Okay? Let me take an example.
Compliments, as in Navin, you're looking really good and you look good on most days. Those compliments?
No, complements.
Compliments.
With an E.
With an E, not an I.
Yeah.
I.
Right. So, think of potato versus chicken. Right?
Okay.
So, chicken is a substitute for potato. I mean, if you eat more chicken, you're going to eat less potato.
It's like that. Okay,
Right?
Because nobody I know will think of potato or chicken as a substitute for each other.
Oh,
if you
you
eat chicken, you eat chicken.
Right. When ChatGPT takes your job, you're going to be forced to eat potato. Okay.
So ChatGPT is going to take my job, it looks like.
Okay. So, but now consider socks and shoes. Right? They are complements.
Okay.
A shoe needs a socks, right?
If you look at some of the people I know, it's not true, but I know what
For
you
all
mean.
decent people. Okay. So,
Okay.
all decent people, if you buy shoes, you have to buy socks. Socks are useless without shoes, and shoes should be useless without socks. Okay. But the point is that you have to buy them both together.
Yeah.
The sales of shoes going up is going to result in sales of socks going up.
Yeah, in that sense, yes.
So let's think of, I mean, you already know about supply and demand. If you don't, check out our episode on that.
Yes, you should.
It is important. It's good stuff, right?
We'll put a link in the description.
I mean, one way to think about it is everybody should know this. Another way to think about it is it's a superpower that you get in understanding how the world works.
Yeah.
But coming back.
And in also understanding why you don't get a cab when you need it the most.
Yes. So let's try to understand the difference in substitutes and complements as far as supply and demand is concerned.
Okay.
Right? So, if the demand for chicken increases, you're pretty much going to expect that the demand for potato is going to go down.
Yes.
Or which means that
Because they're substitutes.
correct.
So,
Which means that the price of potatoes will fall.
okay.
Right?
Yes.
So the effect of one of your substitutes
Doing
better means that you are going to do worse and that your price is going to fall. I mean, the price you can command.
Correct.
Whereas with a complement, the situation is different. I mean, when the demand for a complement goes up, the demand for your stuff also goes up, right?
If I buy more shoes, then I'm also going to need socks equivalently.
Yeah. But
not
think of
I buy more shoes in general if shoe sales increase.
No, but think of it in terms of business strategy, right? If Nike goes around advertising shoes and increases the demand for shoes in a country that was used to wearing Kolhapuri chappals, right? The demand for socks will go up even if the socks company never advertises.
True.
Right?
That's
Which
true.
is why you don't see advertisements for socks on TV. It's just shoes. Socks people don't care, right? Because the complement is doing all the advertising.
Oh yeah.
Correct. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But this makes things kind of tricky also.
Okay,
right?
how?
Because if you are going to, I mean, you're not buying Nikes, let's say you're buying cheap shoes, right? If you're going to spend 500 rupees on shoes, you probably have to spend 200 on socks also, right?
Yeah.
Which means that you have to budget 700 rupees. I mean, whatever budget you have for footwear is going to get split between the different complements. Some for shoes, some for socks.
Yeah.
Right? So shoe manufacturers have to feel that pain a little bit. As in, the more socks cost, the less they're going to spend on people are going to spend on shoes.
Yeah.
Which makes a bunch of very interesting things which you are going to see in this episode. But the simplest one is that if somehow you can cause the price of socks to go down, then the amount of money people are willing to spend on shoes will increase.
So in a sense, it looks like the shoes and the socks, the manufacturer of shoes and socks are sort of in a war with each other, but not exactly, because they are still trying to increase their own sales, and because they are complements, the other sales will also increase.
Yes.
It's a very weird situation.
It's a very weird situation, and let's take some examples slowly.
Please,
Okay?
yes.
First, let's take a weird example, which is the
Weird
manufacturer.
situation, weird example.
The manufacturer of both those things are the same.
Okay.
Like, imagine a printer
Oh yeah.
and ink,
Yes.
right? So you can't use the printer without ink, and you can't use the ink without printer. They are perfect complements of each other.
Rab ne bana di jodi types.
And if the same company is making both of them,
Or more
they
like-
can play games. They sell you a printer for very, very cheap. Why? Because they know that once you bought a printer, you're going to have to buy ink again and again and again. So they make the ink expensive and the printer cheap, and that's how they hook you.
Expensive and how? I mean, pound for pound, ink is more expensive than champagne.
Probably gold also, I don't know. But yeah, ink is one of the most expensive things in the world.
Yeah,
by
printer
weight.
ink. Yeah, by weight.
But you also keep in mind things like this companies, what they do is that they have an inbuilt chip into it, and the ink just expires. Even though there is ink, but because so much time has passed, they don't want you to use the ink.
It bleeps me off to no end. I can't even
Yes.
begin to tell
Okay.
you.
But this, I mean,
Yeah, but the idea
strategy-
of compliments here is very clear.
Yeah, and the strategy was really started by the razor blade people, right? They give you razors for almost free because they know that you're going to keep buying blades for them, and that is also why Gillette blades do not work with any other razors, right? They don't want to become a complement to somebody else's product.
Yeah, use
So-
only our cartridges, whether they are printer, ink, or razors.
Right?
Don't go anywhere else. There is also another company that does the same thing. Use only our branded products,
Yes.
even though they cost like a bomb. Even though tiny little wheels cost $400. I don't know who even buys those tiny little wheels.
I sell you a razor expecting that you're going to buy my blades. And then somebody else manufactures blades that are compatible with your razor. That person gets all the benefit, and I sold you a razor at a loss, so I am sitting here with a loss. That's
Yeah.
stupid, right? Because that blade is a substitute to this blade. Right? The blades are a complement to the razor, but the different blades are substitutes to each other. Right?
So if you have a complement for a particular product, then it makes sense to also own the rights to manufacturing that complement.
Correct. If you are selling the complement also, then you want to prevent any other substitutes to that complement. On the other hand, if you are not selling the complement, you want there to be lots of competition in the different complements so that the prices of the complement goes down and people are willing to pay more for your product. Right?
Aha.
So I'll give you two great examples.
Please, I
for this.
was trying to think of examples. I think
Yeah.
I have one, but maybe he'll come up with it.
Yes.
And I'll
so
be validated.
in the 1950s, IBM started making computers.
Yes, the
Okay.
first desktop PCs.
And think about all the extra accessories that you need with computers, right? You need printers and you need keyboards and this and that, right?
Old guy, typewriter.
All
he
of
thought
these are complements. A computer is useless without all these other things, right?
Yeah, I mean.
And IBM didn't want to be in the business of making all these so many different accessories, right?
Peripherals.
Yeah. So what they did was they published specs of, as long as a peripheral matches these specs, it will work with our computers. And they wanted as many manufacturers as possible to manufacture these peripherals so that peripherals become very cheap, and the main computer that only IBM makes is expensive and people are willing to pay more for it, right?
Smart.
If the peripherals were expensive, you would buy less computers because you wouldn't have the money.
Correct.
Later, in the 1980s, somebody else did the same thing to IBM, okay? At that time, now we have a different set of complements, right? The computer and the operating system. They are complements to each other, right? We had reached a stage where you can't use the computer without an operating system.
Mainframe was the operating system back then.
Right.
I
No,
think.
but then we started selling computers to individual people, And Mr. Bill Gates developed an operating system called Disk Operating System.
Yes.
And so he convinced IBM that they should sell Disk Operating System along with the computer.
Okay.
And the Disk Operating System became very popular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disk operating system, by the way, is DOS.
Yes. What Microsoft did was they made it compatible with other computers. Okay. And now what is happening is that this disk operating system can work with IBM's computers, but it can also work with computers made by a whole bunch of other manufacturers, Hewlett Packard and Compaq and so on, right? As a result, guess what happened? The computer became a commodity. When I say something becomes a commodity, what it means is that a large number of people are manufacturing it, and there is not much difference between the quality of the different ones, right?
Yeah.
So
Of the
people are
different
saying, you know
options
what, I'll
available.
go with the cheapest one. I don't care about your computer. You claim it is all this special and costs
Suddenly,
so much
IBM
more.
was forced to compete with all of the other computer manufacturers, and
The price went down.
yeah.
Right? But there was only one operating system across all of these. So now the price of that can go up.
Yeah.
Right? Microsoft slowly started increasing the prices of their operating system. DOS was cheap. Later came Windows. Later came other weird things.
Yeah,
Right? So-
within Windows family, but then
basically what happened was that the complement, which is the computer, that got commoditized, and all the money became, went to Microsoft.
yeah, as in, there is commodities, and then somebody else complementing it with kind of a monopolized product, which
Yes.
Microsoft did with Windows, which IBM did with the computer, and then later on, what is the next iteration is something that's quite interesting to think
So,
about,
no,
because
in
now
fact-
the operating systems are also commoditized in a
Yes.
way.
Now, so think of the following, right? I mean, I will show you why this concept is so powerful, right? Let's ask the question that in the 1990s, IBM was paying people to develop free and open software.
Okay.
Right? You heard about the open source software movement.
Yes.
Right? Now, why is IBM paying people to make software which you cannot charge for? How does that make sense?
Because I don't know.
I will explain. Right?
Please.
By the 1990s, IBM had realized that they had lost the battle for
Computers.
right? So in fact, they got out of the making PCs business, sold it off. Lou Gerstner turned around IBM, made it a huge successful company again by saying we will give IT services, software services, IT services.
Okay.
Right? Now,
The
IT
earliest example
services-
of a pivot.
IT services is a complement to what? It's a complement to software.
Yeah.
Right? You use software, you buy software for your company, but you are not smart enough to use that software properly. So you tell IBM, please help me to use this software properly. Please help me to customize it. Please write scripts on top of this. Right? I bought a database. Now write the queries for this database. Right?
Okay.
So these are again now complements. Software and services on top of the software. Now guess what IBM is trying to do? It is trying to commoditize the software.
Okay.
How do you
How?
Pay open source developers to make software and give it away for free.
For their operating system.
That doesn't matter. No, that IBM is no longer in the operating system business. IBM is just saying whatever software you buy or download for free, we will help you use it properly, effectively in your business.
Like
so
that.
they are charging for services on top
Right.
of software. Now, if you have to pay $2,000 for the software and you have a budget of 5,000, then only 3,000 left for IBM. But if you have to pay zero for the software,
IBM gets $5,000.
correct. And that explains why IBM paid companies like, why MySQL is free database.
I am beginning to see how ChatGPT works in this equation in my context, but I am going to be patient and we'll come to that slowly. Go on.
right? So just to make sure that all of you have properly understood this, let's just go through a few more examples of substitutes and complements, right?
Okay.
Substitutes is simple. I mean, if you can use this exactly instead of that, it's a substitute, right?
So paid version of say Microsoft Office versus the free version of LibreOffice or Open Office, these are substitutes to each other.
Even two paid versions are substitutes, right? So
Google Docs versus Microsoft Office.
No, Google Docs is kind of free. Most people think of it as free.
Okay, fine.
But no, I mean Mac OS versus Windows.
Okay.
Right? Or Colgate versus Pepsodent.
Okay.
Right? Or iPhone versus an Android phone.
Correct.
Right? All of these are substitutes of each other. Once you buy an Android phone, you don't need an iPhone or vice versa.
Correct.
But now let us look at examples of complements. Okay?
Yes, please.
And for each complement, we will see how this will commoditize the complement helps the business. Right?
Okay.
Starbucks and AC and Wi-Fi.
Again, before we go into any further examples, I want to make clear that we have not been paid by any of these people or paid by the competitions of any of these people. So we are not endorsing or dissing any of them. These are just examples under fair use.
But if anyone wants to pay us, we are not going to say no. Okay?
Of course, we are not going to say
please
no.
Send money.
Please, lots of money. We'll take it for free.
So Starbucks and Wi-Fi and AC.
Okay.
Right?
You get you get Wi-Fi and AC at Starbucks.
I mean, just
free.
What kind of a psycho goes to Starbucks to just sit and drink coffee, right? Nobody does that. You go there, you sit and you're browsing and you do some work on your laptop. And of course, if there is no AC, you would never go to a Starbucks.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, why pay so much? But the point is that Wi-Fi and AC are complements to whatever is the service that Starbucks is selling.
Okay.
Right?
But then Starbucks controls the Wi-Fi and the AC, so they can offer it for free, which means all of the money goes to Starbucks.
Right, because what happens is that you spend more time there, you buy more coffee, except for a few cheapos, I know who you are, but the rest buy more coffee and Starbucks makes a lot of money. Right?
Okay.
IKEA has a brilliant way of doing this, right? IKEA stores have some of the best food and the cheapest food that you can find.
Yes, they do.
Do you know why?
Because when you shop on a full stomach, you shop better.
Well, I mean, you go to an IKEA and very likely you're going to get lost because they intentionally make the layout complex, okay? And you'll keep looking for product after product and they're all amazing and think, oh my God, I need this one also.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, you're going to leave the shop because you're hungry.
Yes.
And that's a lost sale. Instead, if you get excellent cheap food in the shop itself, you're going to eat and then you're going to go back to shop.
That is why places like casinos are known to have some of the best food in the business.
And cheap drinks.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, if you go to Las Vegas, the hotel room is going to be ridiculously cheap. The food is going to be ridiculously cheap. And depending on what kind of stuff you're playing, the drinks are also going to be either cheap or free.
Comps. I've never been there, but I've heard a lot about complementary stuff in this case.
So, yes.
Both I and E.
So this is two different meanings of complementary here, right? So, complementary, they're giving it for free.
Yeah.
But these things are a complement to your entire casino experience, right? I mean, you're getting drinks, you're getting good food, you're getting a cheap hotel room. So you go and then all the money that you saved on those things, you put in the casino.
But at some point, one of these plans has to backfire, right? I mean, you can't keep giving away compliments for free and not, suffer for it. The money has to come from somewhere.
Well, usually you make up the money in your core product that you are selling.
Correct.
Right? Basically, you have conned the person into spending more than they would have.
Yeah.
Right? If the drinks weren't cheap, you would have gotten out of there quickly. But you are sitting there and getting a little more drunk and paying more and so on. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes the strategy can backfire if you didn't think it through carefully. Okay.
That's why starters in restaurants are so expensive. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So, in the 1990s, Sun Microsystems developed Java, a programming language, right?
The cross-platform thing, yeah.
Yes, right. And
there are many software developers out there who went, what do you mean the cross-platform thing? It is the very sustenance of our lives.
Yes. They developed it because they thought, okay, we are a hardware company, we sell hardware, and software is a complement to this.
Oh yeah, they were a hardware company. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So they were selling the Java programming language, which sits on top of their hardware and their operating system, and anybody can use it, right? So they were giving away Java for free. One mistake they made was, I mean, anybody who studied Java knows that it's a write once,
deploy
run
anywhere
language, right? So that it can be the same Java program can be used on any computer. What do you think it did to the hardware?
Made it obsolete and redundant. Like if it can run on any computer, then why do you need it?
Well, no, not obsolete. It made it a commodity, right? You don't need I mean, Sun was high-end, expensive machines, right? Very reliable and all that. But if Java is going to work on any random hardware, why do you need expensive machines for that? So they managed to commoditize themselves and shot themselves in the foot. Guess what happened to Sun later? They went out of business, right?
If you hadn't heard about that until now, welcome out of under the rock that you've been living in all this while. We've gone through a pandemic for 3 years and lots of stuff has happened. Go catch up by watching our previous episodes, specifically the one where we spoke about scientific breakthroughs.
You know, there is one way in which some companies use it extremely effectively.
Okay.
So if you have ever looked at the price of teeny tiny little things, Apple peripherals, right? Like,
what do you think I was referring to when I said wheels, $400 wheels?
Yes.
I don't know why those wheels. There are $400 wheels for the Tower Mac, whatever it is called. I'm not an Apple fanboy, but you know, $400 wheels, machine cut wheels. Why?
Yeah. So, and pretty much everything related to an iPhone is extremely expensive because it's a complement. What are you going to do? I mean, you do need things in your ear to hear, right? So you're going to pay a lot for it. Also, but one thing they did better than Sun is, guess why none of these Apple products work with anything else, right? Why does an iPhone doesn't work with random things you can buy off the street, and why doesn't a random Apple peripheral work with my Android phone? The reason is because they don't want to commoditize themselves.
Correct.
Right?
They learn from the mistakes of Sun and they learn from the smartness of IBM.
Right.
In more ways than one.
Right. So as in, you know, own everything, make sure it is not interoperable, make sure nothing here can be commoditized, and then you can charge whatever you want as long as the overall experience is good enough. Right?
They made a walled garden ecosystem and they are thriving inside it.
Google, by the way, has a completely opposite strategy. Okay. What Google does is that their core business is search. Now, can you name what all things are complements to search?
Everything that you do on the internet is a complement to search because you need search for everything, literally.
So one, for example, is that you need a device, right? That's why Google got into the business of making phones that are much cheaper than Apple phones, Android, right? You need a browser. That's why Google got into making Chrome.
Actually, Google's primary business is not search.
It's the ad business in search, right?
And
so
ad business means you need data. So anything that generates data is a complement to that service that they provide or to that business that they have.
I mean, the faster your internet connection, the more searches you're going to do and the more ads you're going to click on.
Fiber.
Which is why Google Fiber, right? Google is making. Google also pays for a lot of initiatives to digitize information, right? I mean, if you have some like old data, right? Like from letters from the Peshwa era and you want to put it online, as long as it is some unique data, go apply to Google, they'll give you free money to put it online, right?
Why? Because where are you going to search for it?
Yes.
Google Box.
Because content is a complement to Google's main business, right? Which is why Google created Blogspot and Blogger in the old days and made it free.
I'm beginning to see how ChatGPT applies in this scenario specifically to me, and me personally, I'm beginning to think I can be a complement to ChatGPT, or ChatGPT more likely can be a complement to me and what I do. But there are some instances where ChatGPT is going to be a substitute.
Yeah, in fact, we did an episode, take a look at it, about how to think about AI taking your job. And the most important thing we explained there was...
It is the thumbnail for the episode currently looks like a Pac-Man, and the Pac-Man is trying to eat me.
Okay, no, that's not what it looks like. I mean, we know that's the reality, but we don't want to say it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the important thing we said was that don't think of a job as one unit. Think of a job as something that involves 10 different tasks.
Right.
And some of those tasks ChatGPT can do, some of those tasks it cannot do. Now, think of that in terms of complements and substitutes.
Correct.
Right? So the tasks that it can do, ChatGPT is a substitute for you.
Correct.
The things that it cannot do, ChatGPT is a complement for you. Okay. Now your strategy has to be, of course, I mean, basically what has happened is that wherever ChatGPT is a complement, your complement has become commoditized. Right? I mean, anybody has access to ChatGPT and it is ridiculously cheap, which means that the cost of that has gone to zero.
Correct.
Which means that, assuming that the end product is still useful to the customers, they now have more money to spend on the parts that have not been commoditized, the parts that you are good at. Right?
So here is what you'll probably need to do. You'll need to sit down and figure out what are the tasks that you do in your job, and against each of the tasks, you need to figure out whether ChatGPT or an equivalent AI can replace that task, can substitute that task. So is that task the chicken and ChatGPT the potato? Or is that more like a complement to it, as in what ChatGPT does, you can build on top of it, or ChatGPT can't do that at the moment. So in my case, for example, as a voice actor, I don't have to worry about writing the basic scripts. What I can do is use ChatGPT to write a basic script, then use my expertise to tweak that script. ChatGPT can generate, there are artificial voice generators, but it can't put an emotion at the moment. So until ChatGPT can do that, or any other AI can do that, I think my job as a voice performer, voice actor, voice talent is
what
still...
you are saying is that if voice or YouTube videos was my job, then I'm out of a job, but your value will increase because I don't do the emotion and all of that, but you do.
So
right?
humble.
Yes.
As if from Chambal.
Good thing I have other things to do. But yes, this is precisely right. Yeah. But here is a question. I mean, you make a list of tasks and then against that you have to put, can ChatGPT do this? How do you figure that out?
By asking ChatGPT. ChatGPT, can you do this?
In fact, I think the most important thing you can do right now is to understand the capabilities of ChatGPT. And let me tell you, they are far ahead of what you think, right? The only way to discover whether ChatGPT can, how much of your job ChatGPT can do, is to actually try to do your entire job using ChatGPT. Okay? Do this. The ones who don't do this are the ones who are likely to get replaced. Whereas the ones who do this will slowly over time figure out that these things ChatGPT did very well, whereas the rest of them I had to tweak. Make sure that you get really good at the other stuff. Right?
And in some cases, there will be situations where ChatGPT does say 90% of what you do, and you are left with only 10%. That means your job is under threat. That means you need to either upskill or reskill yourself within the domain of your job or in something else entirely. And there will be some unfortunate people for whom that 90% might even be 100%. And those are the ones who will definitely get substituted. I'm sorry to sound like a doomsayer and whatnot, but
I mean, in the previous episode, we did mention that most likely I feel that ChatGPT is going to increase the number of jobs that are available, but they will not be the same jobs, they will not be the same skills. And there will be a transition period during which people who are not able to upskill or change their skills are in trouble. We are going to see a lot of upheaval. It is going to be a tough time. That is why I am saying, get working right now, figure out what ChatGPT can do, figure out what your unique talent is, and start building on that. Start getting better. And do not say, this is not my job, or I am not an X. Whatever it is, try to learn things that ChatGPT cannot do.
If
That's
you
the only
think
way
you're
to
not an
stay
X,
safe.
you will soon be an X.
Yes.
On that bit of wordplay, I think this is a good time to call this episode an end. Shrikant, Navin,
Thank you.
FutureIQ.
Yeah. Thank you for watching till the end. If you liked this episode, check out these others. You might like them also. And please share with your friends. I'm sure they will also like these. Thank you.